I've never really been on 4chan much.
Good, don't go.
Is it still popular?
I don't. It probably is just all like bullshit. But then again, like,
what is it? Just like what? I don't even know exactly. What is it like known for mostly?
I guess B is probably the most like notorious.
So it's like it's in a way like Reddit or like a forum where there's different slash.
Yeah,
something.
that I knew. Okay.
So there's a bunch of different boards for different. There's like travel. There's video games. There's advice. There's porn.
Okay.
There's hardcore porn.
Yeah.
There's
even more hardcore.
There's like anime porn. TV, music, sports. Blah blah blah. There's like set boards. You can't make new ones though.
Right. Okay.
And then you just post whatever you want, and you can attach images, and then it's based on recent activity, so the newest post gets bumped to the top.
And just people talk a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yes.
A lot of nonsense stuff is started from that.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Like a lot of things do like find their like birth like on that board. Like crazy like internet shit starts there.
Like the Scientology thing, like with the Guy Fawkes mask and stuff. Like that started there when they were harassing like Scientology and. It kind of helped bring that into like the limelight, I guess.
Yeah,
and like the evil thing Scientologists.
Yeah, stuff like that.
The evil hacker group Anonymous.
Yeah, and then they show a car exploding.
Oh, Anonymous started there.
Yeah, it's anonymous because nobody has a name on there. So when you post, it says by anonymous.
Oh no, but I'm saying that like anonymous group.
Yes.
Yeah,
they started there.
Yeah, that's why they called it that though. Because they don't have a name.
But it started as a joke, right? Because they just thought they were called Anonymous, or they always like claimed the name Anonymous.
It's weird because they just called everything Anonymous. So I think an outside person saw that and then they attributed Anonymous as like an organized group when it's just anonymous posters are just called Anonymous. Like everyone's anonymous.
And they even shorthand Anon.
Yeah, so like it's like they made like this, there's like they have meetings or some shit. It's just a bunch of people like online posting that have nothing to do with each other.
It's weird,
they do launch organized like hack attacks on like people though. Like they've done like shit where they've broken it. Like I guess like the number of users that are like on this level is like unknown, but like it is like a place for people who actually are like being aggressive to like organize and launch attacks.
You could do that, It depends, like what the mood is, and if you strike it right, you catch a lot of people's attention.
That anonymous thing, I remember, like I think in Reddit they were trying. I don't know if they did it, but they had the idea of like they're gonna make people like make a profile, like you have to put your picture or something. I don't know if you have to.
They started that,
but you have to.
No, you don't have to. I haven't done that yet
for Reddit.
Yeah, they're trying to make it like social media.
Yeah, but I noticed the new Reddit. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I went back to old Reddit.
I like old Reddit too. I don't like the new Reddit.
I haven't seen the new one. Ever since I got banned from Ask Reddit, I'll still like read it here and there, but a lot less because I feel like Ask Reddit was my favorite.
Yeah. Because
there's so many good conversations there, and like they banned me and like assholes, and of course I tried to appeal it, but never contacted us again. Like trying to be tough guys. I'm like. You piece of shit.
Once they have power, then that's it.
I was thinking now, like maybe now, like my internet is different. I don't know, like
new IP address.
Yeah, like can I now just make a new account? They won't know, right?
Give it a try.
Yeah, they won't know.
Yeah. So
this is like, you ever seen the movie Dogma?
No, but I've heard about it.
It's about like these angels trying to get back into heaven.
Well, you never saw Dogma?
No,
that's a pretty good.
It is Kevin Smith.
Maybe I'll check it out. But so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like. I don't know about the anonymous thing. Part of me feels like it's good that people, like part of me feels that people shouldn't be allowed to be anonymous. And like, cause it'll like prevent people from being so like crazy and insane maybe. Yeah. But at the same time, that's going to be repressed, then who knows what they will do. Because like I said before, like I feel like a lot of the strategy with people who try to do good in terms of like, limiting speech. I think I've said this before, like I feel like that's not really like when you prevent somebody from saying what they want to say, it's like you're not really changing the person. You're just adding like a further layer of attention by preventing like them from bringing out what's in them. Like you're not removing what's in them. Like they're still an asshole if they're an asshole.
Right.
So it's a weird effect in a sense that like the message maybe not get out there, but then who knows what that person will do.
Yeah.
Like something's gonna give eventually.
Yeah.
Depending on how much of a big of an asshole they are, maybe they'll snap at somebody in real life, At the worst case scenario, maybe they'll kill somebody at the extreme,
Right.
So who knows? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree 100% that that's what happens. It's like you're repressing these things, and And that's what will happen is like...
They'll like snap in some other way.
Well, instead of having like a public conversation, it becomes a private conversation. Then you get into an echo chamber of
that too.
People who feel equally disenfranchised and repressed. And then that percolates beneath the surface out of the sight of like the mainstream.
That happens anyway on Facebook, and that has your name and whatever.
Yeah. But that, I think that does happen, but that has to do with like the general inability for people to be honest and discuss things. So there's not any like thing on the books that says don't talk about these things. But what there is there's a kind of social standard for about what is appropriate and not appropriate. And maybe also there is the algorithm and the technology creates its own boundary to certain types of speech.
But do you guys think like
yeah, you're right, it does happen.
People should be allowed to be anonymous, or should we force people to identify themselves?
It should be anonymous. Because then it's like, if your info's out there, that's just out there for the taking, you know, whatever info it may be.
Yeah, like somebody might try to like...
You have some weirdo piece together, like things about your life, and then like do shit. And
yeah.
It's like, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anonymity is the way to go.
Yeah.
Just for all those reasons, you know.
Because somebody might try to hurt you, like unfairly or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, oh, if you have your name out there, then you'll be less mean, or whatever the argument is. And
yeah.
It's like, that's a weird way to try and encourage someone to be nice. They're not just going to auto be nice. Just
right. And even if they are, like, it's not genuine, you know?
Yeah. It's like, if you're a shit person, you're a shit person.
I feel like that's what I find interesting. Like, one of the most interesting things about, like, communicating with people is that, like, what people say to each other, even about each other, like you could observe a group of people talking to each other and like saying things about each other while they're talking to each other, let's say, that a lot of the time doesn't match what they say, you know, behind each other's back, you know?
Right.
So like you could look at a group and think, oh, these people get along, these people are friends, and you might feel like, oh, you know, I'm not really part of this group, let's say, you know, because all these people are getting along, I feel kind of like out of it maybe, you know? Like I felt like that a million times. But then you hear these people talking when those people they were talking to are not around, and they might, oh, this person's annoying, you know, they go on and on about this, like what the hell are they talking about? Like I've heard stuff like that, you know, and it was like, it's just very bizarre, like that mismatch, you know. It makes me think like, who are you, you know?
Yeah.
It's just very bizarre.
There's definitely plenty of that, you know.
So you think people are like friendly, but it's like, also I guess it's not your friend then, like you have all these like attacks on about it, all these bad things to say about this person, you know.
Yeah, it's true. And it's, I think, like, for example, like people I know have done that all the time where it's like they'll complain to me about somebody else they have a problem with.
Right.
And they'll be like, this person does this to me, that to me, blah, blah, blah. And my advice to people who talk to me like that is like, these things you have to tell that person. Yeah. Because they're the ones that, like, if you have that issue with that person, that's how you need to reconcile. But it's like, we can't bring ourselves to do that because we don't want to cause each other pain, you know? So it's like you just, like, you know, you dislike this person for some reasons, but you still don't want to cause them pain.
Yeah, I think more so than, I mean, there might be some other, but I think it's more so like the cowardice of how they're going to react. I think that plays a bigger role. I mean, I mean, maybe not always, but at times, you know.
Well, then you can look at it that way too. You don't want to cause pain, and you don't want to experience pain.
Yeah.
So either of those or both of those things are going to happen through the interaction where you're completely honest with somebody.
And I think like not telling people when they're annoying you is like a fatal mistake, you know. And like I was reading a Tim Ferriss book. I'm like maybe like 70 pages in.
Are you liking it?
I am liking it. Yeah, I find it interesting.
Is this the 4-hour work week?
Yeah, a 4-hour work week that takes 7 years to read.
But once you're done, you know, you're free.
No, but it's like it's like I find it to be meaningful, and I like how he writes, you know. But I have complaints about self-help books, you know. But we can get into that later. But yeah, but I think he has good ideas and stuff like that, you know. And like it's definitely something I think worth reading, and I continue to read it. But yeah, I was gonna say like not telling those things to people is a fatal mistake, and I've been weak in those ways at times, you know. But it's like, it's always worse not to do that, you know, pretty much. Like if you have to, like if somebody's annoying you in some way, sometimes you could solve it so quickly if you just told them, you know. And like, but people, it's like they choose to suffer like endlessly instead, you know.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I just was talking to Greg, and I quoted you for that. As like the things that need to be said most are the things that we don't say.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, that's just that idea once again. See, I told you he says that.
And similarly, oddly enough, like coincidentally, I was reading like early in the book, in the Tim Ferriss book, he says, you know, one way to measure a man's success is how many uncomfortable conversations he's willing to have. You know.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely a big factor. Like, you have to say, like, uncomfortable things. Not that you have to be a dick, but you have to say uncomfortable things to, like, resolve a lot of things, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, I think the reason is it has to do with our ability to kind of inflate. When something happens in our mind,
yeah,
it can get as big and as ugly as our imagination can permit it to.
Yeah.
Whereas what's happening to us in the now that we're actually experiencing is a sort of like discrete, limited thing, you know? And so I have a person I have a relationship with, like, when I'm with this person, I'm averaging like a 3.5, like, chronic pain of being around them. You know, it's like a 3.5 pain. And the conversation that I need to have, it makes me feel like the pain is just going to be off the chart. You know, my perception of the pain is so, my imagination, my prediction of the pain is so exaggerated that I cannot like take the leap into that territory to do it, you know, because it would be too excruciating. So I tolerate the 3.5 pain continually rather than risk a level 10 pain, which as we all know, it's like if you're really engaged, it probably wouldn't be at 10. If it was, it would be like for a limited amount of time, and then it would resolve something.
Like make-believe things in your head like are such a big issue, you know, when like you're just like making stuff up, you know. That's
what you do. As a human being, your brain is like a constant like threat detector.
Yeah.
And it's just scanning and imagining, you know, it's pessimistically like looking for like the worst kinds of monsters to avoid them.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, those like self-help books, I feel like some ideas, like that Scott Adams book that I read that was really good, I thought. Like, although like and I'm sure that Tim Ferriss, like I've already read some things that I find inspirational and saying things that genuinely can be useful. But at the same time, I feel like there's like a fundamental like insincerity to all of these things, you know, when you're like selling it's because you're selling something to someone, you know. It's almost like a job interview in a way where you exaggerate your good qualities and you go out of your way to minimize the bad qualities, you know. So like somebody pitches you like how to make $1 million. Mm-hmm. Not to say that they're like lying. Maybe they did do it that way, you know. But like they'll minimize the struggle of it. They'll minimize certain unlikelihoods within the process, you know. They'll take for granted their high level of intelligence as opposed to like the average level of intelligence, you know. So it's like, and I think like somebody who's writing these things, like they must know that, you know, because they're very intelligent people, you know.
Or they might not.
They might not, or they might think, you know, well, I recognize that, but I'm not gonna bring it up because you know, like I have to compromise that because I want to make money too, you know.
Right, and it certainly doesn't help my book if I say it's like, well, this only works in these cases.
Yeah, so I feel like there's like that's one of those things where like I have mixed feelings where I resent that about like how people operate because I've done that too, you know, like that kind of part of the game, you know, the game within the game.
Yeah,
and it's just like there's such an insincerity to that. It's just like in a very real way, you don't want to help me, you know, like you mostly want to help yourself. I think, you know.
You think so?
I think like not necessarily across the board, but generally when like well that goes to that argument of like altruism, you know, I guess. But I think like fundamentally people are their main motivation is always to help themselves, you know. Even when they help other people, like you might be happy to help other people, but that's only because it benefits you.
Right.
So I don't think that's evil. I think like the problem is when you're happy to like hurt other people, you know, if like you're fucked up in that way.
I want to argue with you.
But like I feel like people are so I think like people are, my theory would be generally people do want to help, a lot of people do want to help others, but it's pretty much always primarily for their own benefit because either they make money or it makes them feel better, you know. Which is not necessarily an evil thing, you know, but I feel like, you know, if you didn't get those feelings of being, oh, I'm a good person for doing this, you know, now people like me more. Like, you would never do it.
Yeah.
Or that's what, okay, go ahead.
I think, like, well, let's look at sex, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you think about sex, right?
Open the computer.
Like, I think it's the same. You could be making the same argument. Like, well, you only have sex because it feels good to you.
Yeah.
You know, you're not having sex because of the right reasons. You know, you should only have sex to procreate.
But wait, just so you
expand the
like
species.
say what you want to say, you just make sure it's just like I was gonna say. I think people do things to help others, but even when they do it to help others, a bit like the majority of the reason is because helping others makes them feel good.
Right.
So, but you think that's not true?
But my argument is no, that is true, and you feel good because it is good, and it's nature's design to give you the feedback that you're doing the right thing.
Right. But doesn't necessarily contradict what I'm saying. But I feel like people usually, like a lot of people will say, you know, like, why do you help charities? Because like I love helping people. They'll never say I love helping people because I get off on that, you know, and I like the social benefit of that, you know?
Right.
So like they kind of like, again, kind of like selling a book, they minimize a very relevant, huge reality of it. Which again, I don't think that the reality is an evil thing, but like people are like, aren't giving you the whole story, you know? It's always like, oh, I love helping people, period.
Right. But maybe people that might not be because they're being duplicitous and secretive, but rather because they don't know how to articulate like the deepest mechanisms of their being, you know? Like a lot of us, like we conduct ourselves without any rational understanding of like why we're doing what we're doing.
Like they're not introspective enough?
No, yeah. I think that's more the case. Not so much that people like, oh, if people knew that I was doing this because it feels good to do it for me, then I would be less of an altruistic person. But because we're human beings, like we all know what it feels like to do a good thing. We all know it feels good.
Yeah, maybe it's not like as sinister. But again, I don't even think it's sinister. It's just like...
But I do sense like, that's why I have to argue with you, because like...
It's not sinister, but it strikes me as like insincere.
Yes, I could sense that you have like, you're looking down on people. You're being critical of...
In a way, because I feel like I would agree that maybe some people aren't aware of it. But I think like a lot of the time people are aware of it.
And they're just trying to put on a good show.
And again, like I don't think feeling good helping others is an evil thing, you know.
Right.
But it's like that's like a very relevant thing that nobody says really.
But there are people who put themselves in positions of great personal suffering to help others.
Yes, but that's
where the altruistic.
They're just sadists, though.
But even then,
I think you're right. I think you're right. Like Mother Teresa and shit like that. No.
But even then, like that's then is like I think it's still for them,
right?
Because like they get off on that, you know.
Yeah, isn't that masochism?
They make
it's one of those isms.
Yeah, they make an extraordinary effort for others, and that's great. But like that extraordinary effort in turn gives them an extraordinary boost. You're like, wow, I almost like lost my arm helping this person.
It's like that monk that set himself on fire. Come on, that's a show off.
Right? Come on, bro.
In a way,
you're literally the brightest thing right now.
Dude, come on. Seriously, you're just gonna light yourself on fire. Jesus, you know you could get. You're just gonna let them capture you, nail you like that to the wood.
Like I feel like it's never really for others.
What about Jesus?
Even Jesus.
What about him?
He died for your sins, bro.
I still don't understand how that helped.
What about all the other dudes?
They didn't count.
They just died for fun.
I had questions about that too, about that process.
I remember. I was trying to write a joke about that, but it never really worked. But then I saw Stanhope joke about that. He's like, "That doesn't make any sense. It's like saying I took a shovel to the head for your taxes. Like, it doesn't do anything."
Yeah, he died for your sins.
So how does that help my sins?
I don't get it either. But it's definitely more of a...
Don't worry, it makes sense. Don't think
I went on a bike ride to clean your house. It's like, okay. Thanks for the effort.
I forget. Somebody explained it to me once, but it didn't quite make sense to me even after the explanation.
But yeah, I mean, do you think it's fair to say what I'm saying? Or do you think you're saying it is true, but your disagreement is that people aren't that aware of it?
All right. So the thing is, I think all scenarios that we're describing are true.
Right.
I would say that the majority of people, from the people I've encountered and what I understand about people, are probably acting in response to the feedback they get from doing the right thing. I would say that like 50% of people are so in pain that they are acting selfishly to satisfy a pain that they're experiencing.
Okay.
So these people don't even really break into like altruism because they're not, you need to have a certain bit of headroom to be altruistic. You can't really help or support others if you're in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
Right? So that's probably half, I would say, of the population. And then there's maybe like a 30% population where it's like they're acting in a good manner, but that is not, there is a minimum, they're the naive altruist, where they don't appreciate the feedback they're getting, and they're under the impression that they're pretty much just doing it because they're good people and they like to do it, while ignoring the fact that they're getting positive feedback for doing it. Then there are
20% who are true evil.
There are 10% of a very, like maybe like 10 to 15% of people that are kind of like perversely abusing that principle of altruism. Like the people you're saying, they're like, they want to be that thing, and they're kind of addicted to the sense of altruism in a sense.
Right.
You know, and they might be distorting the picture to even more enhance that image of themselves as truly altruistic.
And the final 10% are like doing it and they're conscious of it, but like it's not to manipulate things, that they just are happy to do it.
Right, and they're aware, they're not naive, they're aware, and they're just like moving with that.
I don't know if I would break it into those percentages, but I think like there are those groups of people. I would say people are more consciously manipulating things, you know? But I mean, it's hard to say, you know, like how are we going to test this, you know? But
yeah, and of course I would suspect that people, the way they act in one situation will be different from another. So in one situation you might be naive, in another situation you might be conscious and manipulative, in another situation you might be da-da-da. So even among the individual, it's probably like you probably have all of these manifestations of the altruistic impulse in you.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to, I guess, like, what are people really doing in their heads? Jeff, what do you think?
What are you doing in your head? No,
do you think people are consciously helping, when the people who help others, I think most of them are helping them knowing that, like, yeah, you know, this helps me the most? Or do you think most of them are just doing it and they're happy and they don't think about it that much?
I think it's more like subconscious when people,
like, they don't really pinpoint it.
For the most part, yeah. Because I'll do tasks that are unfavorable for friends, and it's like I don't want to do this,
right?
And it's like I'm not getting any enjoyment out of it. At least like momentarily, I don't. But maybe like a few days later, I'll be like, I'm like happy I did that or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's more of a subconscious thing than
maybe people aren't as introspective as I think, but who knows? Sometimes I try to manipulate people to see if like they'll do the wrong thing, you know, just like to test them. Like and sometimes like even then the answer isn't clear. Like it's like the guy who trained me at my job, there's an opening for that job. So that, like in the new team that he joined, there's an opening there, and I was kind of talking to him about it, like lightly, kind of probing the job a little bit. And then and I know for a fact, because the last few times I talked to him, he was telling kind of, he was more or less saying that he was struggling, and like, I don't think he was really enjoying the job, you know? It was like really advanced and like tedious, and like, he's like, oh, thank God I have a long weekend coming up. I took a few days off. He seemed like unhappy, you know? And now, and there's like a lot more work, so they're looking for another person. So then I'm probing the job. You're like, yeah, but ultimately I don't think I'm going to go for that one, but because I don't want, it's in the other office, you know, it's too loud.
Okay.
But like I would only work in that office if I had my own office. So then I'm kind of probing the job to see what because I'm thinking like, let me see if he's trying to make me join that team as I ask him about this job.
Yeah. To
see, because he's probably wants to pin off some other work on me because now he has more work, and on top of it, it's already a tedious job, or so it seems, you know? And that group is very talkative in ways that I hate, like, you know, over too much small talk. So it's like, you know, this office is loud. He himself kind of hinted that he didn't like it. So let me see if he tries to get me in there to alleviate some of his pain, you know? Because he knows I'm good, you know? because we, he's, heard stuff and we worked together for a while. So then I'm like, so I'm like, do you like? I'm like, so how do you feel about that? Now that the position's open suddenly, I'm like, so how have you been feeling about the job? And he's like, I'm liking it more. You delve deeper into these documents, and if you want to work in this, it's called construction monitoring. I'm like, if you want to work in construction monitoring, this is definitely the place to be. So like suddenly now.
Oh, so he is evil.
So suddenly now the job is good and he likes it, and like this is a place to be if you're, if you are interested, So it's like, and again, like the answer isn't clear. Maybe he changed his mind,
Maybe he got through the growing pains.
Yeah, maybe.
Or you talked to him when he was having a bad day.
Exactly. So I'm like, even then, when I'm trying to like manipulate, like to see the answer, like it's still not clear.
Nah, he's evil, bro.
Like what do you think? Do you think he's like being dishonest to like for me to help him, or do you think he probably changed his mind? What do you think is more likely?
It could be growing pains, because that happened to me at work too. So it's like I was really hating it for a while, and now it's like it's smooth again. So like now I do change my mind. Like, so it is possible that things just got better and things clicked into place. And it's like, this isn't that bad.
Do you think it's more likely that that's the case, or is it more likely that he's lying?
I think he's lying.
You do?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would say like I don't know if he's lying. It might be, again, I think it's like we have to really respect and appreciate like how little control people have over their own minds.
You're right.
And so it's like he's getting a report from his subconscious mind about what to say to you for his benefit without being aware of it, probably.
Right.
He's reporting in a way like, I think like everybody is doing that all the time.
Yeah.
I just got into a fight with Julie last night, and a couple of days ago, and she kind of said that, like, I always do that. She's like, you always set things up so that it looks good.
I want to hear about the bug. Go ahead, keep going.
But that, I do think, like, I very much do that.
Right. But
and
do you think...
and he is doing that too,
So you think he's lying, but not really, but subconsciously.
See, that's the thing. It's hard to, if you're lying, it's like, I know, and I know the facts, but I'm reporting lies.
Right. Do you think you might be like unconsciously lying?
Yes. I feel like that is more common. Because when you know that you're lying, it takes an emotional toll on you if you're not a sociopath. And that's why sociopaths are good, because they're highly intelligent and they have no problem lying about things.
Right.
Right? Because there's no emotional
price to pay.
There's no moral kickback for doing it, right? Yeah. Like no recoil.
In fact, they like it.
And so with normal people, we have to like pay that toll for being nefarious.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe if you continue to do that, you just become more comfortable with being nefarious, and then you kind of grow into it, and you're like, what's the big deal? I'll just lie to everybody and take whatever I want, So maybe there's a certain degree of that. But so that's why I feel like it's the naive person who has the best of both worlds, because then they can benefit from their own dishonesty without feeling the guilt about it.
Right. I guess like, it doesn't, I don't know, like it's hard to say, because I don't know what's in people's heads, but sometimes I'm like, you know what you're doing, know?
What I think, if the more intelligent a person is,
and he's a smart guy,
then he might be very keen on it, And if he's worked in a business environment too, I think working in a business environment trains you more to to be deceitful, because you're always working towards like a goal. You're always trying to win like a million competitions at once. It's a very competitive mindset. So I think it depends, and. Like, when I read that book on power, like, that book colored my thinking so dramatically for a very long duration of time. I was, like, programmed to be seeing the world in terms of those power dynamics and how I could capitalize on them. And when I had that in mind while I was reading that book, like, everything looked like an opportunity to capitalize on. Yeah. And, and I tried to.
It's funny because like when I heard him talk, like my instinct was like, don't go for this job, Right. Like again, like your instinct can be wrong, but usually my instinct is good, but again, like it still could be wrong, sometimes. So yeah, it's just weird. Like what is it, Like I wish I could know. I always that's always like, I'm regularly fascinated by like, what the hell is really in your head, Because it's, definitely, I've caught people lying, and I know for a fact that people are insincere, and I'm insincere as well at times, So it's like, like how much of that is really happening, you know? Like how insincere are people really, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know, it's interesting.
It is really interesting. But from your standpoint, it shouldn't make a difference. You know what I mean? When it comes to your own ability, well, maybe it does make a difference. But I would say that whether he's naive or whether he's
Purposely doing it?
Yeah, whether he's being manipulative or naive, it should not affect your decision, right? Because you know, or no, it does, right? Because you're trying to find out, like,
is this a good job?
Is it a good job or not? And if you don't know that, you can't tell whether or not it is, whether he's reporting accurately or not.
That too, and also because on top of like another layer of distrust is that they need more people. So if you're in a group and you need help, you know, what are you going to say? Hey, everybody, this job really sucks, you know?
Nobody comes up with this. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, I don't know, you know? And he's gained a lot of weight recently too, which scares me.
Oh.
Because it might be part of being, a sign. I mean, a lot of the time people overeat because they're stressed out.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So like maybe that's part of it, you know? It's like.
But he's making so much money because buying steaks and shit.
He's making
that's what happened to me when I was at ABG. Like, I got like fat because I was just like, consuming like to satisfy my emotional pain. Like, I had the money, so I was just spending it and like.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just bizarre. And like, I mean, like, it's weird. Like, yeah, like that. Like, I feel like everything has a business element to it. You know, like even if you're doing like a charity, you know, like it's a business, you know. And like, it's like insincere in all the ways the bank is. But I feel like the bank is just like more at the forefront of the insincerity, you know?
Yeah.
It's like all we do is like the deal stuff, you know? The charity does all the deal stuff too, even with banks, you know? But, you know, their actual work is heavy on, giving out sandwiches or, you know, setting up hospitals, whatever the hell they do, you know? And like at the bank, that work is just the deal stuff, you know?
But I would argue that even for the bank, like the bank's behavior, business behavior is guided by the altruistic principle because the business exists to support the people who are a part of the organization.
Yeah.
You know? So if you're connected with that organization, like you like that organization's ability to be like cunning and calculated and win, you know?
You mean like the charity tours, like you want your bank to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's like
to do that too, though.
Yeah. If my bank is among other banks, and let's say like that's the operating principles of the banks is to do whatever is necessary. Like it's a war, you know? It's like, do you want to go up against, like, you know, all those guys got guns, but we don't think that's moral, so we're going to charge in there with swords. Like, no, I want us to have guns too if we're going into a gunfight, you know? Like, let's arm ourselves well, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so it's a question of, like, where is the framework of association? You know, what are the boundaries of my tribe at any given point in time? That will shape how I perceive the conflict. Yeah. And how I will seek to triumph over the conflict.
Sorry, go ahead.
And that's why I feel like good, strong organizations, the people within them are looking out for each other. Because if you lose faith in the organization, you're going to revert to a smaller thing, right? And then what's going to happen is within you, the organization, it's like you have internal conflict and you'll destroy yourself from the inside. So the degree to which you can unify all levels of your organization is best, because then it's like you're like fucking Voltron, you know?
Yeah, and also like that's kind of, I think I also said this before, but like I think it's relevant that, you know, like people see like people who are like business, like more direct part of like the deals and all that stuff. They see those people as more like there to be frowned upon, you know, like the businessman is an asshole, you know? Yeah. But like everything is like attached to that, you know, and like you yourself are doing things out of self-interest, you know, so like your self-interest involves maybe like a different like skill, but it's like the desire to like, you know, get ahead and all that, that's all the same, you know? And it's just like, it's like, you know, like normally working at a bank would, like most people I think would think like, oh, that's less noble than being a nurse, you know? And I feel like I've met nurses obviously, and like, you know, I met Stacey's family, her cousin, her name is Trish. I don't know if it's Patricia, but they call her Trish. Oddly enough, Stacey doesn't even know what her name is. So she's a nurse, you know? And when I met her, she has a very like strong personality. Like, you know, like I run this town, you know, kind of thing. It was kind of amusing, but it's weird seeing like...
That's a nurse then.
it's weird seeing somebody who has a very intense personality. Because I can be really intense at times, but I find it strange when people do it to me anyway, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm used to people like kind of, like I feel them backing off, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but with some like some small percentage of people were like, they'll like kick back at me, like, you know? And I'm like, oh shit. So, I mean, I still don't let them win, but depending on like who they are, like they might win here and there, you know? Like,
yeah.
But anyway, like she was like, we were talking a little bit, and then right away I could tell she was like an intense person. And I was telling her, like, I'm like, what do you do? And she's like, I'm a nurse. And I'm like, do you like it? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, she's like, what do you do? I'm like, I work at a bank. And she's like, a bank. She's like, do you like it? But like her instinct was like to be like disgusted.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And I'm like, are you actually a better person than me? Like, you know, why
did you ask that question?
No, I didn't want to like. I didn't want to like go into too much, but I highly doubt she's thought this through. You know, like why are you really doing what you're doing? So you see that without the bank, your hospital wouldn't even exist. Like, who is really more noble? Because I mean, like the bank supports hospitals, you know,
right?
And like if it wasn't for the bank, like people would die, literally. You just like, obviously the hospital plays a very big role, but it's like a team effort, you know?
Yeah.
But the person who works on this angle suddenly is evil. The person who works in this angle suddenly is a saint, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, what do you have to think about?
I was going to mention this because I was in a meeting with, I work, like I was telling you before about, I work with those two new teachers. Mm-hmm. I like them both very much.
Yeah.
And I was meeting with them because I'm in their class doing support, and then the school's like special education person came in to have a conference with us.
Yeah.
And then like we kind of got through the nuts and bolts of what the discussion needed to be about, and we kind of drifted into small talk. And then like the one new teacher was sharing like her experience, blah, 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 and then contrasting it with what her husband does. And her husband works in finance.
Right.
And then like she, I forget what it was, but like, you know, her husband made a comment about something she was doing. And then the special ed person was like, kind of like made this glib remark like, oh yeah, you know, you're just out making a difference. You're actually making a difference.
Right.
Implying that an educator actually makes a difference,
right.
But a person working in finance doesn't make a difference.
Right. Which is,
and that registered and it hit me. I was like, that's a bias, you know, that's
right.
Totally a bias. There's no reason to believe that people who work in finance aren't doing incredibly good things. Like you don't even, like you're saying, you don't even understand what that person does in the slightest.
Yeah,
you know?
At which point exactly did I become evil, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, in my social justice class, we talk about this, the single story, you know, which is like kind of almost on the same level as a stereotype where it's like, okay, this is the image of banker, like corrupt, greedy, womanizing,
like
fat cat,
cocaine addict.
Right, and people don't see like, you know,
this isn't too far off from that.
But like, but it was just like I think like it's like for one, like you're saying, it is unfair in a way because generally people who hate on business don't know anything about a bank, like literally nothing, and like so like you don't know what you're talking about. But like I wouldn't be as pretentious to say like I know what it's like to be a nurse, you know. But you were pretentious enough to tell me what my job is like.
Right.
But anyway, like aside from that, like, do you think it's like, is it like just like a failure of like how we perceive things? But like, is a nurse, you think generally, would a nurse be more a noble person than somebody who works at a bank?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, she wouldn't be a nurse if they made $13 an hour.
Exactly. Why did she even become a nurse? Because they make decent money to start.
Mad decent money.
Like 60 grand to start, something like that, right?
It's a good chunk. I don't know the exact amounts, and obviously it differs throughout the country and throughout, you know.
But it probably doesn't go lower than 60.
Maybe it's like threshold, but it's still either way. It's
like you're making a decent
tends
living.
To be above like median, right?
Yeah.
It's not 25,000 a year
for starting positions.
So like you're kind of trying to highlight the point, like, well, you probably a big reason is that, right?
Yeah,
and the incredible demand for that too,
and the fact that people generally think you're a good person.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you can be an asshole person.
That's right.
And you're like hide in that.
And disgusted.
I'm a nurse.
Yeah.
You know,
As a nurse.
That's like anytime there's like a waiter, they always come up when they're talking about hard work, and it's like they always like, you know, I'm a waiter, and it's like sometimes they don't pay me.
Yeah,
but then they don't mention the days they get paid like $500 just for 1 day's of work.
Yeah. So like, what do you think? Like, so like, I'm tempted to say that, you know, you can't like you can't really say, you know, most nurses are better people than most bankers. I feel like it's not fair to say that. Like it's not quite clear.
No.
What do you think that's fair?
I think that's fair.
What do you think?
Yes, you would. There's no. Again, it's stereotyping. It's like saying black people are all criminals. You know? You can't do it. But this is an interesting thing. I'll go back to what I said before about culture and how culture shapes your neurology, how culture shapes your behavior. You know, I will say that I'm sure that you become less empathetic working in a business environment than in a healthcare environment.
You think?
I would say that in order to succeed and to be successful in the environment, you need to take on the right sort of characteristics. So in the immediate sense, you would probably become more cutthroat, more calculating. You're looking at numbers, not people, you know? And so you're optimizing calculation based on finance, you know? And I think that's why the business people gain the reputation for being kind of evil in a sense, is because they're not human. They're not looking at the human element, right?
I think like even that I feel like is like doesn't like truly apply a lot of the time. Like I mean I think like there are people who are that way, who are like very transactional, you know? There's like I don't even care to say hello to you, like do this for me now, you know? Like that's how it goes here. Like there might be some people who are like that, you know? And like, even I wouldn't want to take it that far either, you know? But I think like a lot of people, like I know a lot of these people now and like they do care about the human element. They're not like crazy. Like they're nice people who get involved in nice things. Like a lot of them even volunteer. Like,
that's the offset the evil bankiness.
Yeah. But it's just like, I mean, they do think about the numbers, but like, why don't people say, yeah, we are thinking about numbers a lot, but like, it's also because, you know, the numbers have to be right or the hospital is going to sink, you know? Like, I mean, I think like, sometimes I think in those ways, like, you know, although I'm not in the hospital, like, because of what I do, like, the hospital has the resources to, you know, be a hospital, you know, like, I don't necessarily think that most banking people are really operating in this way of like, all I care about is, you know, the number, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the finance Wall Street market people.
Yeah, but I mean, like I think like there is that, but I think like, I'm just not seeing that there's like less humanity necessarily, although there can be, you know?
I mean, that's what always is the case when you like confront a stereotype, right? Yeah. It's like you work in the environment, you see the people, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's always like that. And so that's why like the stereotype doesn't apply for you anymore. But for people who never get to have that experience, all they have to go on is the stereotype. Yeah. And so that's what they'll use because it's convenient, you know?
Yeah, because I think like a lot of people, like they do have a really nice, like they do care about the human element. They have like this nice humanity to them. Like when they come talk to me, they'll be like really polite, you know, and like we'll laugh about like whatever stuff, you know, like it's not this like crazy, you know, where is this paper, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, it's not like that. And oddly enough, right. This hospital that I'm referencing is St. Peter's Hospital. Mm-hmm. Like we have like an account, have like 1 million accounts with us. And like the CEO of that hospital is an asshole, an enormous asshole. And like, you know, and he works at a hospital, you know, I guess he's more in the business portion of it, but like he's like running the hospital and he's a dick, you know?
Have you ever watched the show Scrubs?
Yeah, like a little bit.
You know, the guy, I forget his name. The director of the hospital there.
I don't know enough to know, but okay.
The older dude.
Yes, and he's like a notorious asshole too.
Yeah.
And I think, although I haven't watched the show as much as Julia who loves it, I should talk to her about it. But it's like, again, I think there are moments in that show where it comes up where it's like, he's an asshole because he has really difficult decisions to make.
Right.
And like, if he is too kind and too sympathetic, then the good of the all will be subordinated to the good of one. And as a leader, like you always have to keep your eye on like preserving the whole and not like favoring the single person, right?
Yeah, there's truth to that too. So it does become like complicated, but I think generally, like if I tell you, you know, like I run a bank, it's like that's one thing. I tell you I run a hospital, suddenly the hospital is gonna get more brownie points, you know?
Yes.
So it's just like
again, but that's stereotype too, you know?
And I feel like, but like again, like there are some really cutthroat business people, you know? And But yeah, like, you know, I
There's
don't
some
know.
nurses who are cutthroat.
Yeah, like how many nurses
and
are like
literal cutthroat.
Worse,
Killing
yeah,
patients.
or completely incompetent, you know.
or they don't care, like they just did it for the money, maybe. Like,
Right.
they don't care like at all. Let's say, right?
And they're jaded or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's about breaking through the stereotype, but we won't do that because we don't have to. And as long as we don't have to, it's like we're going to conveniently revert to those things.
Yeah.
Because thinking through that would be too complicated. Which even that I understand. Like, I don't blame people for having like generalized and discriminatory attitudes about things because I know what kind of complexity lurks under the surface of like reality. You know, like your idea is designed to like paint a broad stroke.
Yeah, and also I think like what did you just say that? Like that guy who works at the hospital and Scrubs in the show, like he has to be really tough and really precise to run the hospital so people like literally don't die, you know. And again, like the banking people, like they have to get the numbers right, you know. Like what if the hospital needs to like they have to take out a loan for $1 million, and like they need it Friday, and we have it all set up for Friday, and then people fuck it up because they're talking about their cats, and now like maybe they don't get the equipment they need, or like now somebody might actually die, like like you need that precision of people to like crunch the numbers, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, it's like it's not clear who's like more evil here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's not. But it would be nicer if people could just take a little bit more time. Like, I think people would be better served if like they recognize like how many stereotypes existed in there.
Yeah.
And again, like keep your stereotype, use your stereotype, but like you have to kind of like, it's like how we're all like, we have an ego, you know? And it's like your ego is your persona. You have a persona, but like you take psychedelic drugs and you realize that you're not that, you know, you realize like there's something more to you than your persona. You have ego death, right? And it's like, then you come back and you kind of always have this like understanding now that it's like this persona, which I took to be so serious and concrete in the past, is not what I thought it was. And what I've learned is it's so valuable. I need it, but it's not the whole story. And that I take this all with a grain of salt now, knowing like there's a whole nother layer to the story. And I think like that's the way people need to operate. It's like keep your stereotype, whatever, but recognize that your understanding is limited and that you're operating with a tool and not really understanding reality as what it is. Yeah,
like I remember like Ben Shapiro, that guy, conservative guy, he once said, like he was talking about Walmart, how people hate Walmart and the Walmart family has, gotten so many people out of business and all this stuff. But he's like, kind of like I was kind of referenced, he was saying like, at which point then, like I think the name is like Walden or Wharton, I don't know, like the people who invented Walmart or created Walmart. They're like when exactly did they become evil, you know? Like, so once they're rich, at that point now suddenly, the devil got into their head, like who knows how those people really are operating. Like Walmart is really convenient to go to and it has like good prices and like the going there is awful and the clientele is awful. But, how could it be otherwise granted, like what those jobs are and the prices you're offering? Like you can't have this elite quality and this, if you want this cheapness, you want to like help really poor people, it's not going to be like an elite thing,
Right.
So it's
like,
limits. So it's just like, and like them running people out of business, like maybe they're supporting the community more by doing that, maybe like 1% went out of business, but now we fed 1,000 people with a business could only feed 20,
Yeah.
So it's just like, again, like you're saying, like, everybody just, like the broad stroke thing, I guess, yeah, or like, oh no, they're rich, they must be evil,
Yeah, that's pretty much like the primary, like when you get a person who's like a socialist, for example, like their criticism of capitalism is like how it disenfranchises people and it takes things and the exploitation and stuff like that, and then the capitalist rebuttal to that is always like, well, if we removed all those systems that have that degree of exploitation and corruption, whatever. It's like you're also taking away the 95% of it that's hugely beneficial, that benefits a lot of people. And like, would you really trade that? Is it worth it to take away that little bit of corruption and evil?
Yeah.
But I take what I want and I wrap it up so it looks like a gift.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like when you open the gift, I get what I want.
Yeah.
And that's the technique.
Sounds like you have what it takes to run Walmart.
Yeah.
I think people like, that's just like, I'm making an argument, you know? Like, that's,
of course.
That's phrasing. I don't think that's
it's
evil.
You can think it's evil. I mean, I don't...
of course you don't, but I don't.
I don't think it's evil, but it is like...
I always do that, though.
It's like it is insincere.
But of course it's like, I'm gonna incentivize it for you. It's just like you're saying. It's like, like, it's good for you and it's good for me.
That's how you sell a product, though.
Yeah, in reality
but
it is.
It's good for you and good for me, but you're not really saying that. You're pretending like it's for her.
Yes, but...
You couldn't sell it the other way, though.
Exactly. If I tell her if I focus on why it's good for me, it doesn't have any appeal for her.
Yeah, I think even if you said it was 50-50, like, even then it wouldn't sell as well, yeah.
Right. But, so what I do is, like, I want to convince you, so I have to show you why it's good for you.
Yeah.
It's
for the greater good.
In a way.
It could be. Maybe not, you know? You guys are my most, like, close and intimate friends, and I really, like, respect your intellect and everything. So I want to know, like, as honestly as you can, like, tell me, like, where you think, like, my greatest failings are as a person. And if you feel like it'll take too much time to think about it now, you don't have to. But
Jeff, does anything come immediately to mind?
I think you're afraid to throw yourself into social situations. That's about it. I'm that way too, though, so
right.
I can't really hate too much.
Well, it's not about like
it's not like I don't hate you. I mean,
it's
hard to like criticize when I have no need to. But if I say that's a weakness,
yeah,
I guess that's a weakness. You can consider that a weakness.
Do you think that's true?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't want to deal with people at all.
Why do you feel that way? Is it that you feel like you don't find them interesting, or something else?
Well, because same reason you don't like to deal with people. It's like most people. It's not just the people, but it's the situations, the way situations are designed to interact with people.
Right.
Usually, like, the pretense that goes along with social situations is so unbearable that I don't even want to deal with it.
Like what, for example?
You know, it's like you go to this fucking show and it's like, all right, well, there's a bunch of people here, there's a bunch of other bands. It's like, I gotta talk to these people because if I don't, I'm gonna look like aloof and standoffish.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to talk to them. It's like, I don't know what angle they're coming from, and I have to kind of like unpack all that. And in the end, why am I doing that? It's like, it's not because like there's something here for me. Like, I don't see like what the reward is for interacting with people on that level. You know, like.
Right. I hate that stuff too.
Do you think you're better than them?
Often I do think
that could be a weakness too, right?
Yeah, that's arrogance.
That's
yeah,
attitude,
that
right?
People don't have much to offer me. You know that.
But I think I hate to say it, but I think that's often true.
But it's true. I am better.
Not necessarily that you're better, but in some cases I'm sure you are better. But the fact that people don't have a lot to offer to you, I think that really is true a lot of the time. You know.
Right.
Because I feel the same way as you guys feel. I mean, I guess we both don't want to be thrown in social situations. Like, you feel that way too. That you don't want to have these like interactions, like, or you don't feel that way.
It's like I don't want to have them, but once I start having them, I like them. It's usually that. Me, it's more like the barrier fear, because I don't mind like socializing.
Okay.
It's just hard to throw myself in there, like the first, like getting my feet wet kind of thing.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I see at times I have that, and at times I have where I don't want to do something and I'll go do it and I like it.
Yeah.
But generally I don't like it. And like I feel like most of the time, even when I've genuinely tried to be friendly and like I try to like act how other people are acting, I guess, like it's never really satisfying to me. Like I never, even with my best effort, like I feel like it's almost never good for me, you know? Yeah. And I do feel like people don't have a lot to offer me generally. Maybe it's because like they don't like me enough, or like they can perceive that like I'm not that into them, you know? It's not even that I hate them, right? They just like, usually it's like an indifference, or like I just can't relate to them, you know? Like I don't, however it is that we live clearly is very different, you know? So like, it's just like I have nothing to say to most people, I think, and like I'm not interested, you know? And like, so I feel that way, and I feel like a lot of people aren't okay with that, you know? It's like, if, like you're saying, like if you don't do that, people are like, oh, this guy is weird, like he's an asshole, or like he thinks he's better than us. Like a lot of the time it's like I can't relate to you more so than I hate you, you know?
Yeah, and I feel that way too. It's like I'm a pretty unusual guy in like a lot of my perspectives and points of view, and it's like It is. It's just like I feel like I have to have conversations that are on levels that like I have no interest. You know, it's like we talk about how big of an asshole Trump is. You know, it's like, well, yeah, that's another. Yeah, like I don't need that conversation. You know,
Right.
or at least I don't feel like I need it. And like the layer of that conversation that interests me does tend to be like I'm like you. I want to go deep. Like you know, it's like don't fuck around. It's like why are we doing this for real? Like.
Yeah.
Can you hang at that level? And that's where I want to go and be with like that degree. And I just maybe I need to like find different environments to interact with people.
But you gotta realize too, that's like there's a conversational foreplay.
Yes.
You can't just start fucking banging right from the get go.
That's right.
That's not how.
No, I want
That's
the
not
eyes
how
wide
shit works.
shut, like into the intellectual eyes wide shut.
You could come here to the whorehouse and just get down and dirty.
It's not a warehouse, you know. It is true. Like, have you seen Eyes Wide Shut?
No.
No, I know what you're talking about. They got the mask and they're freaky deaky. And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and they all go, and it's like this crazy thing, and it's like that.
That's
Yeah.
a real story too, by the way.
Is it like
No, really?
I was reading this.
Wait, it's a movie?
There's so much nudity in that movie.
Yeah,
Is it good?
It's awesome.
But there's this place they
No,
go
but-
where
sorry,
they
go
all get dressed and stuff, and then they all have weird freaky sex, and it's like a high end like place. Some dude like started doing it. It's like everybody kind of.
Oh, there's like sex parties.
Yeah,
I've heard about those.
Yeah.
Crazy,
And they, like,
crazy stuff.
They're all masked, and it's usually like all these rich like socialites and stuff like that, and these like actors and stuff like.
But that's a real movie.
That's Stanley Kubrick film.
Is it a good movie?
It's a good movie.
I think it's on Netflix.
Nicole Kidman and
I'll check it
Tom
out. Then,
Cruise.
yeah. Eyes Wide Shut. But yeah, like that's a good point. Like people, like I have complained. I hate small talk generally, but I grant that people don't owe me deep conversations. So especially in recent times, like I don't try to like push myself on people that way anymore. Usually, and I'm like, but then at the same, and I grant what you're saying that even people who are profound people, you don't just like the first thing you say, hey, how do you feel about dying? Like I don't know where that's like very bizarre, But at the same time, I feel like even when I make efforts to do the small talk and like kind of gradually go, it never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
So even with that effort, I feel like it goes nowhere, So like generally it's like anything, you try. It's like eventually you're like, this doesn't work, like I want to just do my own thing, Like,
Yeah.
fuck you people.
And it certainly doesn't, in the same way, like it doesn't naturally appeal to me to like do that with people, where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let me yuck it up. And I found, and
Just do what Gus does and question things. I like how you do that, by the way. I think that's
Yeah.
We're talking about weaknesses. That's a positive.
yeah, that's
I
a
love
good,
that shit.
a wonderful conversational technique, it's
To ask
just-
people questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can do that. I find that when I do enter into social situations, I tend to do very well socially, and I think people usually end up liking me quite a bit when I interact with them.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, I don't feel motivated to, like, put in that effort for people, It's like, I don't need you to like me, and frankly, I don't care if you like me or not, and, why am I even doing this?
Yeah. So
I have very low motivation, but I do feel like when I try, like, I succeed in social situations.
yeah, I just don't like you feel. Sometimes I also feel like I have to put like a tremendous effort, and I can like kind of play the game with them, like, but then like I'm zapped quickly, and I just can't keep going, and I certainly wouldn't want to see them again, So it's like if I give it my all, I can survive like a night, And it's just like yeah, it is exhausting. It's just like sometimes I feel like it's like we're not even the same species, And again, like sometimes it's not that like not necessarily that I'm better. It's just like I don't get like your frame of reference,
Yeah.
I don't see how like our interests are just too different, Like I don't know what it's like to be, named James and grow up here and have a nice family, and like I don't understand that,
Right.
So it's like it's just too different.
So I think it's pretty clear we're all, like, introvert type B.
But I think Jeff is
person.
more healthy in that way.
Yeah. You
Damn
guys
you,
are fucked up.
damn you, Jeff.
I'm just a shy person. You guys are antisocial.
Well, we kind of spent a lot of our formative years together being like antisocial, so we probably really reinforced the that whole like attitude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say another like I think a negative quality that you have is that you're not very expressive in like your like love for people, or like I don't care about other people, like, but for us or me, like if like I don't know, if you were more like emotional in that way, like maybe like hug us or something, but that would be awkward maybe, but like part of me like wants that in a way, like if you were more emotionally giving.
Right.
Because in part I think that's bad because if you don't like, and I suffer that I can be like very emotional at times, but I also suffer that from that as well. And I think like that's bad because like it separate like it puts like a distance between us if you don't do that. I feel like there's like a distance that you're not collapsing, that we have to collapse if you don't do that at least sometimes. And like it makes me like you more when people do that, when like they're sweet, And so I think you pretty much you don't do that enough, or you do it very rarely. But it's like I think that's bad, and also I think it's bad because it hurts you in that way because again like people are people. So like if you're very cold and like that, and like I think generally people don't like that in some way. Even though you're nice and like polite and stuff, like if you show them like a little more like tenderness, let's say, like you can like entice them in that way as well. So like that's like a thing that works in your favor too,
So be more seductive. So your time.
In a way, like if you were more emotionally giving in a way. Again, not that you have to come and like make out with me, but like
sweets.
More like
flowers.
More emotionally like connected in that way.
I understand. I'm making a lot of like romantic jokes, but
you know what I mean,
understand
right?
what you're talking about. Yeah, that it's like I don't.
You're like cold past, significantly past the norm. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang. It's so.
You said it.
It's like.
And I can see why, but
I do have like so much love in my heart, though. It's like it's there. It's not that I don't feel the love. I don't know why, like where the disconnect is, because it's like I'm such an emotional person. Like I feel deep emotion.
Yeah.
Like I weep frequently about like emotional things. Like I think about like how beautiful love is and how beautiful things are, and it's like it makes me weep. And it makes me like, I feel like all of this emotion and stuff like that, like it's a real, like, I am a very, very emotional person, but for some reason it's just like, it all stays inside. It's not like something that I can easily,
I'm sorry.
I can easily like make like, I don't know what it is.
I can help you.
Oh yeah?
Yes. A new invention called Love Coin. Alright, this is going to be an app on our phone. Every day we get like an X amount of love coins, and then you can give it to another user. Like, this is how much love I have for you, and it shows you the percentage of their love coins for the day that they gave to you. It's like, damn, he gave me 70% of his love coins. Damn, that's
like to make it clear how much they love you.
That's bullshit.
I would say I don't think that's gonna work yet.
Yeah, so if you had to really give something, then it would matter. It's like Reddit Gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, they spent money just to show their appreciation. Like
but the thing is, like, what's like not alarming, but like
you don't want my love coin.
It's that like
it's worthless.
I know, like
devalued.
The tricky thing is like. I can see that like doing that is not in your nature. So like I wouldn't suggest like pretend that, I would suggest, I don't know, maybe you could explore, like the ideal is that you genuinely want to do it.
Yes.
Not that you're like, I don't, like I said before, I think like being fake, I don't think is nice, like actually being nice is nice. If you fake niceness for some like manipulative reason, I feel like that's like, yeah, dishonest, as opposed to like you're actually genuinely feel like, it's good to conduct myself in a nice way. It's different than like, I'm going to pretend to be nice and then I'm going to make $100,000, So like, it's different in a way, and like, I think that detail matters. And yeah, so it's weird. You have to get to a place where like the good things that you want to do are that you genuinely want to do them, but that's hard to do,
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it's like almost like exercise.
Yeah, like I remember like in like those old like Greek philosophy books, like they have like being virtuous is like knowing the virtue, doing it, and actually wanting to, like it's in your nature to do it. You're not truly virtuous if you're like not doing it, Like if you're not doing it in those multiple dimensions.
Did you ever do that love language?
I have, yeah.
What did you get?
Acts of service.
That's what you like?
Well, it's way off. I'm kidding.
Why?
It's way off. I'm kidding.
Yeah, the 5 love languages.
Yeah. Is that how you
service.
show love too? By acts of service?
Oh, I forget what it was.
But you do come off as really nice, and like polite and stuff.
Do the
like
laundry. That's how much I love you.
You're a pleasant person.
I do so much, It's like I'm always thinking and acting.
What about us, Ian? Jeff is a person too.
I try to do more.
But yeah, that's like a thing that I think like might hurt you.
And I am so like emotionally barren in terms of like the way I apparently like display affection.
But like I don't know, some things are weird because that's beneficial in a way too. Like even Tim Ferriss said this once, like being extremely, and people say patience is a virtue. And I like to say like carrying that fuck up is more of a virtue. But like being extremely impatient can be very useful, Like he says that in an interview. I don't know if he says it in the book. Maybe he'll say it later. But he says that he's very impatient. And like somebody was like, "Well, you should try to be more patient." He's like, "Well, sometimes it's incredibly useful." But he also feels like he probably should work on being more patient.
Yeah.
So like kind of like I don't know, like your supposed bad qualities can be very useful,
Yeah.
So it's hard to like, it's weird to like. Sometimes it feels almost impossible. Like, how do I accomplish the same goal without it being fueled by the dark thing? Like it's hard to like, oh, let me sneak in like good fuel. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, dude. It totally makes sense.
That's kind of how I feel about my motivation. Because like I think like if I'm truly honest, like although I'm a lot less angry and bitter, I'm still fundamentally angry and bitter in a very meaningful way. And anything that's ever been useful that I've done, most of it is fueled by that, like I'm angry, I'm going to show you, like kind of like Eminem attitude, like fuck you people, like I'm going to show you, like, and that's like bad in a way, but the result can be really good, So
I gotta use the bathroom too.
The dark fuels.
Dark matter.
What are you guys talking about?
We were saying that sometimes like maybe like Ian's coldness or some other bad quality, although like it can be bad in some way, it can also be good in another way because it could be like fuel to do something.
Yeah, this is a point you mentioned before too, not directly, but when you were talking about the kind of like the goodness between the banker versus the nurse.
Yeah.
And this is something maybe Ian should be here because he probably knows like what it's called. There's probably a name for it.
Okay.
But I feel every type of person is necessary in like the
grand scheme of things.
Yeah, like we can't all be perfect people in like that perfect sense because nothing would like get done if that makes any sense. Like
we need like things to like balance those out.
Yeah, we need the person who's crazy and like works 24/7 and like just drives things forward. And
right, because he'll invent like the cure for cancer.
Yeah, and then we need all the people that are just like lazy and can't like think for themselves to be the workers, to be the manpower, behind that. And we need somebody who's crying at everything and everything's a travesty because they'll like round up the troops and will like get help for like, the thing that's needed, and we need like, every kind of person that there is. It's like we need that for like a reason.
Yeah, that is a good point to highlight.
There's no like one size fits all human that we should all achieve to be, because I don't think that will like do anything.
Yeah, if everybody was like 100% like even keeled, like I guess like the flavor of things and like a lot of innovations maybe wouldn't happen and everything,
Right.
But I feel like the most interesting people are very bizarre, in some in the most meaningful way. Something is like way off, or way different, but usually like way off, and it's like, I don't know, that's like the most interesting people and like the people who do the most interesting things, But I think like, I don't know. And also another thing is like I take pleasure in being like, I like people thinking that I'm different or something, like I take like a sick pleasure in that.
Me too.
And I like the idea of like people being intimidated by me and like people thinking like, oh, I'm not gonna fuck with him. Like I enjoy that in some like sick way.
Right.
So like I don't want to let go of having this like, like you better not fuck with me attitude,
Yeah, it's a part of your identity that you really identify with.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like it can be bad. It can cause like bad things, or people are like, whoa, I can't believe you just said that, So it's like it's weird because I don't want to let go of some of my bad qualities because I really enjoy some of my bad qualities,
Mm-hmm. But I think that's fine,
So you think like these bad qualities, like we should just kind of like, let them be?
I think so. I think it's kind of, in a sense, to try to like change someone fully.
Yeah, it's not really gonna happen anyway.
No, I think it's more of like the 7 circles approach. Like what's the dude? Steve McGovern, is that his name? If I get it
7
right.
habits of
Stephen McGovern. No,
Steven Sanders.
I forget his name. Stephen R. Covey or whatever.
But I think it's like that where you could influence like your neighbor, the person right next to you. Like we can influence each other. Like we're already multiple people, and we are influencing each other. It's like that's who I can influence. That's like all I'm gonna worry about is what I can touch. Like I'm not gonna freak out about something I can't touch.
So just like you're saying, like the idea of just go, just make the most of what you have the power to do, and not so much spend so much effort trying to change like some bad fundamental qualities that you have.
I don't think that necessarily, but I don't think there's like I think everything will kind of even out anyway, in a sense. So
like you don't have to even think about it that much.
It's almost like there's no choice. It's like you want to get better. It's not saying like we shouldn't get better.
Right.
It's just like that's just what we do,
Okay.
And then people do what they do no matter what. And then I can influence you, but I can't influence like everyone. And we need like every type of person. We can't have a million of us. Even just the 3 of us, which is already diverse, I guess. Like, if we're all us, like, nothing would be good anymore. Everything would be like a travesty. Like, I think, until, like, I guess we evolve and we are no longer us anymore. It's just things break down.
It also makes me wonder, like, if changing, like, those very deep-rooted things is ever fully possible, Because, like, even, like you being cold in that way, like that's such a fundamental aspect of you, I feel like I can like feel it just by like looking at you. And like I know you have like intense emotions, like you're saying, like I recognize that too, and I've seen that too. But like the fact that you have this quality where you don't express it or don't feel certain aspects of it, like other people feel it, that's so obvious, and so profound and so like deep rooted in you. Like, could you really ever get rid of that, And again, like, do you even really want to, or like the things that I have, could I ever truly eradicate that,
I think that's like some things I think you need to acknowledge and then play off that knowledge. It's like this
right, more so than trying to like remove it.
Yeah, it's like a scar, and it's like trying to pretend that scar's not there, or trying to like get plastic surgery, and I have a mound, like this plastic mound over the scar that it's still not good because it's like off, and then it's just like you're obsessing with. Yeah, it's like just work with that, like don't be so like.
So would you both agree that it's like maybe that's the best idea? Because is it most likely impossible to change those things like fully?
I think so, because the reason you are the way you are is because your brain is the way it is. There's a physiological like end point.
It's just too fundamental.
And who knows like how much can be
modified.
Like you're saying.
Like, are you ever really gonna love cuddling, even if you tried?
I do like to cuddle,
but like like an extensive period. Like you like it. You said like minimally, right?
No, I've the cuddling thing. I like the cuddle.
Oh, okay.
So like that was an easy one though.
Okay. So like, the other emotional needs that you don't like satisfying, or you like the result, but you're not crazy about doing it.
See, I guess the thing about cuddling is like I like to cuddle, but I'm not always in the mood to cuddle. So that's the thing. It's like if I'm not in a cuddly mood, it's like don't come near me. But when I want to cuddle, it's like let's cuddle, Yeah. But I think I am becoming like better like compartmentalizing, and I think like a lot of that has to. I'm sorry, I don't want to get too far from your question, but I think there is a certain like boundary between what can actually be changed, and what can't be changed, and that's like the hardest thing. Like I can see like where it is inside of me that like I don't want to go beyond that, and it's like part of me is like.
You're saying part of you doesn't even want to try to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, is that misguided or is that like an authentic thing? Am I being arrogant and like ignorant, or am I standing by my principles? and it's not clear like what the answer is.
Yeah. I don't know. In the end, like, I love myself, but nobody else does.
Dude, I have so much more shit to say, but we gotta get going.